Okay, let's get the obvious bit out of the way first. Don't do this. Warning, the following acts of toxicity were performed by and on professionals in a closed environment. I insist that you do not recreate what you are about to see at home. Viewer discretion is advised.
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，冰淇淋，电视，速度与激情，冰淇淋。He needs some milk.
There was a lot to unpack there, so let me pick apart what was going on and why you shouldn't replicate it. However, I should make a disclaimer before I do. If you want to use a meta perk or two, or hell, even use a full meta loadout, go ahead. I recommend that you don't, since it might make the game less fun for others while also stunting your experience, but I can't really stop you. The real problem comes from knowing how powerful a build is, latching onto it and it alone, abusing it to its fullest potential 24/7, then lashing out when it gets criticized or nerfed for good reason. Your actions outside of build choice also have consequences, just remember that. If you use a quadruple slowdown nerfs build but are chill about it, be my guest. However, you're a fool if you think tunneling and bleeding people to death on purpose on top of that is anything but too far. This video isn't about the nurse though, it's about survivors. So dust off those maps, jingle your keys, and put your thumb over the spacebar, because it's time to learn how to play Survivor my way. This section is only for slightly newer players who are trying to get a grip of the game, so you can skip this section if you've been playing for a while. Or don't, since you could still learn something new. First of all, let me make something clear. I believe there's a bit of a difference between fundamentals and basics. Dead by Daylight's tutorials will teach you the fundamentals such as repairing, healing, unhooking, and how you shouldn't leave the water running. Experience and guides like this will teach you the basics, like knowing when and where to repair or heal, making the most out of pallets, and always using your turn signals. First things first, repairing. The big thing that decides if you get out or get put down. As soon as the match starts, there is something you can do that I see very few people do. Instead of getting on the very first generator you see, take a little jog. Not only can you take in the layout of the map, you will generate pressure against a killer by making it harder to patrol generators. By going to a generator which is a decent distance away from your spawn point, you'll get behind enemy lines to discombobulate a killer's sense of where repairs are happening. You should really do it if you spawn with someone else and see them instantly get on the generator you spawn next to. Most of the time, it's better to have multiple people doing multiple generators as opposed to pounding out one. Another thing to note about repairing is that you should really pay attention to where you and your teammates finish generators. If you don't, you may lock yourself into what's known as a 3-gen, which is a situation where the survivors have 1 gen left to repair, but they leave their final 3 options right next to each other, which means the killer can very easily patrol them. The last thing I have to say is be careful with your skill checks. It may be awkward to get used to the timing at first, but going into a few bot games should do the trick. It may be tempting to try getting greats as much as possible, but you shouldn't try too hard. A common mistake is to hit the spacebar too early and make yourself look like a goober. Getting a good skill check isn't the end of the world, so don't get greedy. That skill check principle also applies to healing, my next topic. TLDR for healing, there's a time and a place, just like unhooking your teammates and telling that girl that you love her. On paper, the ideal time to heal is immediately after you become injured, but there's a little more to it than that. Besides the obvious bit of potentially being in a chase, there are indeed times where it's better to risk getting downed easier. For example, imagine this somewhat common situation. A teammate has unhooked you while the killer was nearby, and the killer chases your teammate, thus leaving you to your own devices. You start running to make some distance and happen upon a generator which is almost done and being repaired by another survivor. The best thing to do in this scenario changes depending on some variables, including if a chase is happening, how far away the killer is, and what hook state you're on. If the hook I mentioned was your first, or the situation happened without a hook, it's actually best to finish the generator before you heal. Doing this will keep progress towards the main goal going. If you're uncomfortable with the state you're in due to killer distance, lack of a chase with another survivor, or being on death hook, you can crouch and look at your teammate to ask for healing after leaving the gen at 99% completion. If you do this, you still keep progress moving, but you also heal up before drawing attention to your position with the completion of the generator. Other examples of when to heal or not heal include healing before cleansing a hex totem, foregoing a heal if that hex is Devour Hope or Noed, and waiting to rescue a survivor from a hook so you can heal each other. Speaking of hexes, I'm going to throw totems, chests, glyphs, and specific things related to killer powers or holiday events under the umbrella of extracurriculars. Cleansing a dull totem is often seen as a bad move, but that only applies if you do it at a bad time. For example, cleansing a dull totem here is okay, but doing one here may result in some gamer words being thrown at you. Hex totems are a different story, as they're tied to killer perks which need to go unless you enjoy pain. Be warned, some hexes actually cause pain upon being cleansed. People say that cleansing a Dole Totem is pointless, but that's only somewhat true. It can give fewer places for Hex Noed, Plaything, or Face the Darkness to spawn. It can give that stupid fucking Michaela fewer chances to give away your position by placing a boon at a horrible time, and the blood points you get are always pretty rad. On top of that, knocking them down is just fun, so the whiny babies out there can shove off. Also under this principle are chests. By spending some time to unlock them, you can net yourself an item that ranges from broken to shit, so open them at your peril. Just like totems, the bad stigma around chests originates from those who open them at bad times. However, opening a chest while injured to hopefully get a medkit in dire times is often understandable. If you're opening them for funsies or the random item like I do, just be careful. If you're wondering what those glyphs I mentioned are, they're, well, glyphs that spawn in-game. They only spawn if you're doing a Rift challenge, which is an optional objective to help progress through this game's version of a battle pass. They come in too many colors with too many effects to explain here, so I'll leave that for you to explore. Another thing which I'll leave out is the various intricacies that lie within facing certain killers. The biggest one I can think of is knowing when to cleanse while playing against a plague, but there are many more that you should look into on your own. To wrap up this section, remember this. Do not drop every pallet or take every vault you see instantly. Take in the environment, then run around the pallet or vault as well as the surrounding obstacles until you know that you can't avoid getting hit. This can be supplemented by using fake-outs alongside chaining pallets and vaults to create a loop, as they're known, but that's a can of worms for another time or someone else's video. However, I will say this, for the love of all that is holy, do not drop the pallet at the Killer Shack early in the game. That pallet is what is known as a God pallet. There are numerous other ones in places such as the bottom of some stairs in Midwich Elementary, or almost every fucking pallet in the Gideon Meat Plant, but the Killer Shack pallet is the biggest and most consistent one. God pallets are only to be used in emergencies. If you get hit early in a match while looping the Killer Shack, it's better to use the speed boost from being injured to run to a separate pallet or vault. I know I left out a lot of information on purpose for time constraints and because I am not the greatest at teaching, so go check out some other videos when you're done with mine, and be sure to practice with a friend in a custom match if you can. Something that even I can easily teach is that you should never take the chance to unhook yourself unless it's the only way off the hook. Just don't do it. You'll look like a goober and screw over your team. Before you get out there and start having fun, you gotta pick a survivor and get dripped out first. In case you're new to the game, all survivors have the same stats in terms of objectives and movement, so the only differences are in visuals and audio. Having an enjoyable outfit and survivor gives you and other players something nice to look at during your matches and makes the suffering you all endure by playing this game hurt a little less. On top of that, it will help you avoid being stereotyped and potentially save your virtual life. If you play Nia and dress like a traffic cone at a gay pride parade, people will become suspicious of you due to bright colors being the mark of toxicity, just like the poisonous animals some DBD players are. In addition to potentially putting a metaphorical target on your back, obnoxious clothes can also act as a literal target. I mean, look at this haircut. This just screams, dome me with a hatchet. Some of you may be saying, but I like that haircut. To that I say, just equip it, my man. Go there. If people think you're an asshole, prove them wrong with your actions and words. The little things could make someone's day. About the target point, the aim assist is negligible. It's more about being extra visible in comparison to normal outfits, but you should be fine if you utilize cover. If you're in a huntress's line of sight and she's winding up behind you, a change of outfit won't do much most of the time. So how should you dress? Who should you play? However you want, and whoever you want. If I may, I'd suggest switching survivors or at least switching outfits when you play. It does wonders for your experience in terms of fun, just trust me. I just wanted to include this section to warn about the effects of not doing so and to make some recommendations. If you're a lady who's into dad bods or are a male owner of one, Jeff or Jonah is the way to go. Both of them are unfortunately somewhat limited in terms of cosmetic choices when compared to other characters, but they pull off the things they do have very well. Jeff mostly sticks to leather jackets and other hardcore aesthetics, while Jonah is basically Guy Fieri with a bunch of student loans. Behavior, you better give Jonah a flame shirt in the next big update or I'm gonna say some gamer words. Both of these characters are uncommon picks, so you can take pride in not being basic and have a little moment of union when you see another one of your kind. If you want something on the feminine side, my favorite picks are Jane and Yoon Jin. If you don't like their choices, despite a pretty big reason to pick Jane, Fangmin and Nia are good if you're lame, Meg is good if you love eating crayons, and Yui is perfect if you're a fucking weeb. Speaking of us weebs, there is some good shit here for us, my brethren. Most of Yui's clothes are okay for the most part, but the big stuff comes in the form of motherfucking Attack on Titan outfits. You won't actually play as the characters from the show, but playing as a character, cosplaying a character is good enough for me. To name a few, Felix plays Armin, Jake plays Levi, Dwight plays Eren, and Yui has a Mikasa skin. The two Japanese killers also have AOT skins in the form of the Armored Titan for the Oni, and the Warhammer Titan for the Spirit. But this video isn't about killers. Despite that, players who seek Rising Sun memorabilia should turn to them for a killer fix, even without the AOT skins. The Oni has a ton of badass shit to wear as you protect your waifus, and the Spirit has a ton of neat shit to let you play as your waifus. I keep talking about killers in this Survivor video because I'm heavily against the practice of only playing one side. If you want to play one side more than the other, I get that. However, never playing a certain side leaves you without the knowledge that side possesses. Such an occurrence leaves you as a worse version of the side you do play because you can't think like the other side to make decisions. On top of that, it encourages a lack of empathy between the opposing sides that causes nothing but trouble. With the dramatic stuff out of the way, let's continue the fashion show. Astute viewers out there may have noticed that I haven't mentioned a single licensed character. I did this because people can be biased towards or against characters depending on if they know their source material or not. If people think a licensed character looks cool or looks terrible, the ball is in their court. For this video, I'm sitting on the bench for that game by only mentioning original characters. This section about strictly cosmetic stuff has gone on too long, so I'll wrap it up with some rapid-fire favorites. Adam is a spiffy mofo with one of my favorite backstories in the game. Felix is a fancy-pants pretty boy. Jake has some interesting stuff. And Claudette is in the same boat of being alright with the big man Dwight. Okay, so you're dressed in your Sunday best or your Monday worst. What's next? Well, we're diving right into the deep end by covering perks. Before you get any ideas of becoming the baddest bitch in the land by putting on a meta build and thinking you're hot shit, let's slow down a second. To build off of what I said earlier, if you're nothing without the meta, you don't deserve it. Besides, the sheer amount of perk variety in this game means that there are a lot of things to toy with. You'll bore yourself to death if you only use the strongest stuff. Also, I said that I'm teaching you how to play Survivor my way. I never said that my way was practical, and I never will say such a thing because I'm not an idiot. You may be thinking, well, I guess I won't be having any exhaustion perks. Well, not necessarily. There is one that I sometimes use. What is this we see here in one of my builds? A poor soul who's been mostly forgotten, but not by me. Smash Hit, a perk from Yoonjin Lee. Is it great? No. Is it good? Personally, I think yes. The problem isn't that Smash Hit sucks, it's that Dead Hard and Sprint Burst are just that good, and Head On is just that bullshit with its huge hitbox. The ability to just dip after a stun is actually quite nice, but it is somewhat situational due to requiring that stun to actually happen. Yet, that flaw actually makes the perk even more fun. The rush of taking off like a rocket after a stun is a great feeling that you should really try. Since there are over 100 perks in this game for survivors alone, I'll only explain 4 perks for y'all and just flash a bunch of other perks I like on screen for you later. Moving on to another perk in this build, we have an Adam Francis perk, Diversion. Potentially my favorite perk in the game, even if you consider killer perks. If you don't know how it works, Diversion has to charge by building up a meter by being in the killer's terror radius for a certain amount of time without being in a chase. When the meter fully builds and the perk activates, you can throw a rock to, you guessed it, knock the killer out. Just kidding, you can cause a diversion by creating a noise notification and creating scratch marks 20 meters away. It can definitely be argued that it only works in certain situations, but the stigma of only working on new players is bullshit. If you time it right and aim it well, it will take a while for good killers to figure out what's happening, if they do so at all. Moving down the line, we have the Cheryl Mason perk, Repressed Alliance, which is a close contender for favorite perk due to how unique it is. On top of being the only way to absolutely prevent a loss of repair progress, it's the only thing that allows survivors to have the entity work with them. Similar to Diversion, this perk has to quote-unquote charge up before being available. Unlike Diversion, you build towards the perk by spending time on generators, not by hiding in the terror radius. When this perk is ready, activating it will make the entity block a generator, protecting it from damage and highlighting it for you and your teammates. This is yet another situational perk due to preventing repair progress for the benefit of protection from damage and revealing it to your team, but it's just so goddamn cool. Speaking of cool, we have this cool fellow by the name of Steve Harrington appearing in the thumbnail for his perk, Babysitter, or Guardian if you're a dweeb. If you don't know why it has 2 names, just look up Stranger Things Leaving Dead by Daylight. TLDR, licensing. Anyways, Babysitter, yes, I will be referring to it by the old name, hides the scratch marks and blood pools of the person you unhooked and gives them a speed boost to escape camping or tunneling. In addition to this, you and the person you unhooked see the killer's aura. You guessed it, this is another situational perk whose viability is questionable, but I just don't give a shit. I normally pick 1 or 2 perks with a bit more consistency to them, but I just threw these perks together while I was gathering footage. As a general rule of thumb, balance is key, both in the field the perk is used in and how often a perk is used. It is absolutely possible to go whole hog into one category, such as healing builds or stealth builds, but I prefer a bit more variety. I sometimes use 2 or 3 perks that mesh together, but I don't often go all in. When choosing perks, I often go by the following guide. 1 perk to help you not die, 1 perk that has something to do with generators, 1 perk to help your team not die, and 1 wild card. I recommend that you toy around with this formula to see what you create, but you should also just say fuck it sometimes and throw darts at a map for funsies. For material to throw at, here are a bunch of other perks I enjoy using. While I'm on the topic of maps, if my opinions on fashion and perks didn't get me some dislikes, this should do the trick. Hold on, don't make a ton of assumptions just yet. Flashlights are actually allowed in my style of play, but I regulate them more than the government unconstitutionally regulates firearms to the dismay of anyone with a couple of brain cells to rub together. The biggest rule of mine is the following. Do not follow the killer around like me as a little kid following my brother. What this means is that you shouldn't drop everything you're doing to attempt a save that you probably won't get. Not only are you an annoying little shit, you may be hurting your team by not being useful, or at least not being on your way to do something useful. If your team is already well off and/or you're already close by, go for it. The usefulness point I made extends to not going for reasonable saves just as much as going for unreasonable saves. Speaking of usefulness, let's talk about one of my favorite add-ons. No, not the brand new part. If you use that on anything but a brown toolbox with no other add-ons, you suck. Even then it's debatable, and that's coming from someone who used that a long time ago before I realized that the BNB was still too strong. My favorite add-on is one that I've seen literally 1 or 2 other people use, the glass bead. Don't know what it is? I don't blame you. It's an add-on for the map, which is already an uncommon item. On top of that, the selection of add-ons for the map has numerous alternatives which are more appealing on paper and arguably in practice. However, the glass bead is incredibly underrated, both in strength and fun factor. What the glass bead does is let you place a beacon of light that only survivors can see. Seems simple enough, but the juicy part is how you can communicate to your team in solo queue. If you're starting a generator, you can place the beacon to summon assistance. If you find a hex totem that you can't or don't want to cleanse at that moment, you can mark it. The only limit is your imagination and your team's brain function. You may be saying that the crystal bead lets you show auras to everyone, but the beacon stays permanently until you place another one, and placing the beacon is more fun. I mean, you get to rain light from the sky and watch your teammates get confused about what's happening due to how rare the add-on is. If you don't want to use the map, I get it. Even a goldfish can remember where generators are, and not everyone finds cleansing gold totems or opening chests as boner-inducing as I do. That shit is like crack to me for some reason. While the topic of rare stuff is in the air, keys. That's it. Just keys. Use them. If you stopped using them after the hatch rework because they couldn't get you an early escape with 0 skill, you're an idiot, and even worse, an asshole. If you have a modicum of sense, you will try keys and realize that they offer decent information capabilities. Seeing the killer coming can get you into better hiding places and help you during loops. Seeing your fellow survivors can help you take hits and heal each other. After all of that, there is still the emergency measure of opening a closed hatch. Sure, it may be less common, but that makes it even more of a rush when it happens. If you want to use more conventional items, I got you. I talked about flashlights a while back, but I didn't specify my add-ons and such. My favorite combination is what I call the sniper. By putting a focus lens and a rubber grip on a sport flashlight, you have the closest thing possible to survivors having a gun. I don't use flashlights often, but that's usually how I roll when I do. I'll sometimes use something more traditional, but I don't care too much. My beef with flashlights mostly lies in how they're used instead of the flashlights themselves. However, I do avoid the classic purple flashlight with odd bulb and green battery out of anti-strong stuff principle. That same thing applies to medkits and toolboxes. I don't use them often, but it usually looks something like this when I do. For information regarding firecrackers and flashbangs, refer to the flashlight conduct section. When working with stuff that blinds, remember that professionals have standards. Be polite. Be efficient. Have a plan to blind everyone you meet. Alright, this is it. The big one. This ought to be interesting. You see this? This means that games take place between a team of 4 and a team of 1. It does not mean that the game is about you. Your teammates are humans too. The killer is human too. The biggest problem with Dead by Daylight isn't balance or the devs, although there are valid criticisms there. The biggest problem is the mindset of players. People love making the game about them. They think behavior should only nerf the other side's perks, only fix the maps that favor the other side, and only make general buffs to their side. The only thing they think about is seeing higher numbers and using anyone they see as a human staircase to get to those numbers. Before you dislike and comment something about how I'm a stinky killer main or an entitled survivor main, look at this, and listen to me. I've seen this game go through some shit. I've been through a lot of shit on both sides. I consume YouTube and Twitch content from numerous creators to compile my experience alongside the experience of others, on top of broadcasting my own experience on stream. With the number of players I've seen in action and the fact that I have a functioning brain, I am well aware of the fact that issues are not black and white, and people are more than stereotypes, despite how much they may fit them at times. I may not have been in this community as long as others have been, but I know what I'm talking about, so please just hear me out. There is a fine but definitely visible line between being smart with the tools at your disposal and abusing them. If you bring strong perks and utilize the pallets and vaults on a survivor-sided map that you just so happen to spawn on, that's fine if you realize why you're doing well and don't rub it in. If you send the killer to RPD, Garden of Joy, or Area of Crows, yes, that's how it's actually pronounced, with a 4-man Swift who is hell-bent on making the killer's life a living hell despite doing nothing to you, that's not cool. It makes a mockery of a principle that we were hopefully all taught as actual friggin' children. When you're playing with the other kids in the sandbox, don't steal their toys or destroy their sandcastles. The point is, play nice with the other kids, but still play. You don't have to offer yourself to the killer after running them for a long time, but it costs you nothing to not be a dick. Most normal killers understand that getting run because of strong perks and loop setups is part of the game, but purposefully making those setups happen and rubbing it in just to piss the killer off is not okay, and the fact that it's a common occurrence is disappointing. It's time to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Yes, you will die more often by playing my way. My response to that is yes, and? Being dead is quite literally the name of the game. Dead by Daylight. If you focus on the journey instead of sweating bullets thinking about the end goal, you'll have more fun overall. The reason a lot of people don't do it is because they're scared to make the switch or scared to see their precious numbers go down. My point about having more fun is amplified if you do your best to make people's day. Instead of being out for yourself and just trying to make it out of an exit, slow down and actually take time to play with the other 4 people in your lobby. The little things could make someone's day, like seeing a rare perk or cosmetic being attached to someone with an equally rare playstyle. The moral of the story is to just don't be a dick. You don't have to equip the 4 worst perks in the game and go in without an item. You just have to not be a jerk. If you stand out from the crowd, people notice, even if they can't or don't want to say anything. I notice. Your actions have consequences, and the other players are all people. If we all just play nice with each other, we can all have more fun and potentially purge the filth from Dead by Daylight and turn it into a beacon of fun that draws people in, not a dumpster in an alleyway that even mangy rats are hesitant to dig into. If this video even makes one asshole ashamed of himself, and or molds one new player into a good example, I'll take that as a win for me. No, for us. For Dead by Daylight.